Dear friend, let me sit with you for a moment. My name is Lenora Whitfield. I am 62 years old, born and raised in a quiet corner of Missouri where people still wave from their porches, and you can hear crickets louder than traffic. I am a retired school cafeteria worker, a widow, and a grandmother who once believed her family would never bring her sorrow. Before I begin this story, let me tell you something from my heart. If you love emotional stories, real life lessons, and true strength from ordinary people like me, go on and hit that subscribe button. Like this story so more people can join us, and turn on those notifications so you never miss what comes next. And please, drop a comment telling me where in the country you are watching from. I want to know who is sitting beside me as I speak. Maybe you are in Texas, or Illinois, or out on the cold coast of Maine. Tell me, my dear friend. It warms my heart to know I am not speaking alone. Now, let me take you to the evening when everything changed. I remember the smell of the air that night. It was cool, sharp, the kind that makes the leaves curl around the edges. I had finished packing a small overnight bag because my daughter had insisted that my grandson and nephew pick me up so I did not have to drive in the dark. I thought it was sweet of them. You see, I believed my family still looked out for me. I believed they still cared. But as you listen to this story, you will see how wrong I was, and I want you to ask yourself a question as you listen. If it was you, what would you have done? What signs would you have noticed that I missed? When the car pulled up, I felt a strange weight in my chest, but I brushed it off. I always do that. I tell myself I am overthinking. I tell myself to trust my family. Maybe you do the same thing. Maybe sometimes you silence your own instincts. Please do not do that. It cost me more than I expected. I stepped outside onto my little porch, locked the door behind me, and walked toward the dark blue sedan. My nephew Rylan was driving, and my grandson Oliver sat in the back seat closest to the window. Both boys were 24 and 26, old enough to know better, yet young enough to think they know everything. As I opened the door and lowered myself into the seat, I smiled the way grandmothers do. The soft kind of smile that forgives before it even knows what for. But I had barely settled in when something strange happened. Oliver's hand shot out, fast, firm, and he pressed it over my mouth. He leaned in so close I felt his breath on my cheek. His eyes were wide, trembling like he had seen something terrible. Then he whispered, barely a breath of sound, "They are listening." My heart kicked against my ribs. Listening how? Listening who? My mind started spinning. Was someone following us? Was something wrong with my family? Or was this some kind of joke? But one look at Oliver told me it was not a joke. His hand shook as he held me. He kept glancing toward Rylan, who stared straight ahead at the dark road. I wanted to speak. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but he stared at me with a kind of warning that froze the words in my throat. My dear friend, imagine it was you, sitting in the back seat with someone you love covering your mouth, whispering that someone is listening. What would you think? What would you do? Would you panic? Would you pray? Would you pretend to understand even when you did not? The car rolled forward slowly, as if we were being watched even in the driveway. Every streetlight flickered as we passed. Every shadow felt alive, and the boys did not speak, not a single word. My fingers curled around my bag. My breath turned shallow. I could not shake the feeling that I had stepped into something my heart was not ready for, something that had roots deeper than I understood. I looked out the window and saw my house growing smaller behind us, my safe place, my comfort, my little world. And I whispered inside myself, "Lord, what is happening?" Then Rylan finally spoke, his voice tight and low, like he was afraid someone in the car might hear him. "We had to do this, Aunt Lenora. You will understand soon." But I did not understand. Not then, not even close. Because what happened next was something no grandmother, no aunt, no mother should ever have to face. Something that would shake every belief I had about family, love, and trust. The moment Oliver pulled his hand away from my mouth, I heard it. A soft crack in the distance, like a branch snapping under a heavy foot. It came from somewhere behind the car, somewhere in the dark. I turned my head toward the sound, my heart pounding so loudly I could feel it in my throat. But before I could speak, Rylan sped up, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. I asked him quietly what was that, but he did not answer. He did not even blink. The street stretched out ahead of us, long and empty, lined with houses that looked peaceful and asleep. Little yellow porch lights glowed on doorsteps. Curtains fluttered softly in windows, and I wondered how many secrets were hiding behind those quiet walls, if those families were safe, if someone had ever whispered to them the way Oliver whispered to me. They are listening. Those words kept echoing in my mind. I tried to piece things together, but every thought felt tangled. I kept thinking about what I might have done wrong. Had I said something? Did I trust the wrong person? Did my daughter send them because she was worried about something? Was this some kind of misunderstanding? I watched Oliver from the corner of my eye. His chest rose and fell too quickly. His hands kept twitching on his knees. And every few seconds, he looked out the back window like he expected someone or something to appear. "Oliver," I finally whispered, "tell me what is going on. I cannot help if I do not know." He swallowed hard, then leaned forward, resting his forehead against the seat in front of him. His voice trembled. "Aunt Lenora, I should not have brought you into this. I told her we should talk to you first. I told her you deserved to know. But they did not listen. They never listen." They, who were these people he was talking about? What kind of trouble was he in? My mind raced to every story I had ever heard about young men getting caught up in the wrong crowd. Drugs, money, people who pretend to be friends but are anything but. But this felt deeper, darker, more personal. Rylan finally turned onto a longer road, one that led out of my neighborhood and into the open county. The houses grew farther apart, the trees taller, the night darker, the silence thicker. I felt trapped. My hands trembled as I clutched my bag. I wanted to open the door. I wanted to jump out and run back toward the safety of my little home. But I stayed because that is what family does. We stay even when we do not understand. Even when everything inside us screams to leave. My dear friend, would you have stayed? Tell me honestly. If you were sitting in that backseat between fear and family, what choice would you have made? As the road curved, the headlights caught something up ahead. A mailbox, a gravel driveway, a sign with peeling white paint. I recognized that bend in the road. That was the old Miller Ranch, closed down for years. No one lived there anymore. The place was abandoned, forgotten, a place where no one would hear you scream. "Why are we going this way?" I asked, my voice shaking. Rylan did not answer. Instead, he slowed the car and turned onto the long gravel path. The rocks crunched under the tires, loud in the stillness. The house ahead of us was dark, the porch sagging, the windows empty like hollow eyes. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. Oliver finally whispered, "Aunt Lenora, please trust me. I know this looks bad. I know you are scared. But you have to stay quiet. If they hear you, everything gets worse." "If who hears me? You need to tell me who you are talking about," I said. My voice rose without me meaning for it to. "I am your grandmother. You owe me that." Oliver covered his face with his hands. "I cannot. Not yet. They might be listening already." Listening how? Listening from where? There were no other cars, no lights, just the empty night. Rylan parked the car behind the old barn, hidden from the road. He turned off the engine but kept his hands on the wheel, breathing hard. Then he finally said the words that changed everything. "It is about your money, Aunt Lenora." My mind stopped. My money, I do not have much. A small pension from my cafeteria job, social security checks, a little saved for emergencies, nothing grand, nothing worth stealing. What about my money? I asked slowly. Rylan looked at me through the rearview mirror. His eyes were filled with something I could not name. Guilt maybe, fear, regret. Someone has been taking it. The world around me went still. The air grew tight, pressing against my chest. I felt a buzzing in my ears, someone taking, but who? Before I could ask, Oliver leaned forward and whispered, "It was not us. We tried to stop it. We tried to tell her, but she would not listen. She said you would make trouble if you knew." My dear friend, I felt my soul tilt. My daughter, my only child. Was he talking about her? Could she really have been stealing from me? Could she really have sent the boys to keep me quiet? I shook my head slowly. No, no, you must be mistaken. She would never. But deep inside, a memory stirred. Little things I had ignored. Missing mail, confusing bank statements, times when my debit card was declined though it should not have been. My daughter insisting she would handle my bills so I would not stress. My dear friend, I feel ashamed telling you this, but sometimes love blinds us. Sometimes trust becomes a trap, and I had stepped right into it without even seeing. Then something happened that made my heart nearly stop. From the shadows behind the barn, a small blinking red light appeared. Faint, almost invisible, but it was there. Oliver saw it too, his face drained of color. "They followed us," he whispered. "Who?" I demanded. "Who followed us?" He shook his head. "I cannot say yet. I wish I could. But if I say it now, it will put you in even more danger." Rylan grabbed the keys and whispered urgently, "We need to get her inside. Now." Inside that abandoned house, that broken place, away from the road, away from witnesses, away from everything familiar. My dear friend, imagine standing on the edge of fear, not knowing who to trust. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Run, fight, cry, pray. Because as Rylan opened his door and stepped out, the red light blinked again. And this time it moved. My dear friend, thank you for staying with me. Take a deep breath, because what happened next felt like stepping into a nightmare I did not know I was living in. And remember, no special characters are used. When that tiny red light blinked again and shifted to the left, something inside me went cold. You know that feeling when you suddenly understand that danger is real, not imagined. That is what washed over me. It was like the night was holding its breath. Rylan stood outside the car, eyes locked on the barn. His shoulders were tense and his jaw was tight. Oliver reached across me and slowly pressed the lock button on the door, as if that small click could protect us from whatever was watching. "Aunt Lenora, stay low," Oliver whispered. "Do not sit up straight. Do not make noise. Do not open the door unless I tell you." My dear friend, imagine your own grandchild telling you that. Imagine seeing fear in his eyes and knowing he was trying to protect you from something he was too afraid to name. What would you feel? What would you think? Tell me in the comments, because even now, I still wonder what the right reaction should have been. My hands shook so badly I had to hold them together in my lap. I lowered myself until my head was almost level with the seat. The smell of the worn fabric mixed with the scent of my own fear. Rylan took one careful step toward the barn, then another. I noticed he kept his hands slightly raised, palms open, as if he expected someone to step out. That frightened me more than the blinking light. Why was he acting like someone was hiding there? Who had been following us? And what did they want with me? Oliver kept staring at the light, whispering under his breath. "It is too soon. They should not be here yet. We were supposed to have more time. They promised us time." Promised who? Promised what? The questions stormed through my mind like thunder. I wanted answers, but every time I opened my mouth, fear pushed the words back down. Then Ryland suddenly lifted his hand. "Stop! Do not move." I froze. He pointed toward the side of the barn. Another small red light blinked there. Then another, 3 in total, all hovering, all watching. Oliver cursed under his breath and pressed himself lower in the seat. They are scanning. They are marking the car. They know she is with us. Scanning, marking. My dear friend, those words meant nothing to me then, but the way he said them chilled me. Ryland backed toward the car slowly, never turning his back to the lights. His voice was low when he reached the door. They changed the plan. They must have found out she knows too much. "I do not know anything," I whispered desperately. "Please tell me what this is about. What money? What plan? Who is following us? What did my daughter do?" The moment I said her name, Oliver looked at me with such deep sadness that it made my stomach twist. "Aunt Lenora, you should have been told months ago, but she said you were too gentle. She said it would break you." Break me how? Because someone took my small retirement money. That was bad, yes, but it would not destroy me. It would not chase me out into the night. There had to be more. Ryland nodded toward the house. "Inside. Now, we stay in the open too long, they will approach, and if they approach, everything is over." I did not want to go inside that broken house. Every part of me wanted to stay in the car, lock the doors, and pray. But Oliver opened his door and gently grabbed my arm. "Aunt Lenora, please, trust me." My dear friend, sometimes trust is not a choice. Sometimes it is the only lifeline you have. So I let him pull me out of the car. The night air hit my skin like a slap. Cold, sharp, almost metallic. We moved quickly toward the old house. The wooden steps creaked under our feet. Ryland shoved the door open. The smell inside was heavy with dust and old wood. Cobwebs hung in corners. Pieces of broken glass scattered the floor. A forgotten chair sat on its side like someone had left in a hurry years ago. Oliver closed the door behind us and slid the metal latch into place. Even though the house was abandoned, that little click felt like the thinnest shield between us and whatever was outside. I clutched my bag to my chest. My voice trembled. "Boys, please, stop hiding the truth. I need to know. Is my daughter involved in this? Did she take my money? Did she send someone after me?" Oliver glanced at Ryland, silently asking permission. Ryland shook his head. "Not yet, not here. She has people listening." That word again. Listening, not watching, listening. I felt my fear twist into confusion. Why would anyone listen to me? Why would anyone care about an old woman with knee pain and a small pension? Then the floorboards upstairs groaned. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Ryland stepped in front of me instantly, a protective wall. Oliver lifted his phone and shone its dim light at the ceiling. "Someone is in here," Oliver whispered. My heart stopped for a moment. Someone in the abandoned house, watching us, waiting for us. Ryland motioned for silence and crept toward the staircase, each step painfully slow. Oliver grabbed my hand and held it tight. I could feel his pulse. Fast, terrified. The upstairs creaked again. A slow, dragging sound, like a foot sliding across the floor. Whoever was up there knew we were here. My dear friend, imagine standing in the dark in an empty house with danger outside and danger upstairs. If it was you, would you stay frozen or run? Would you scream or whisper? Tell me what your heart would have done. Just then, the footsteps stopped. A long silence followed. Then a voice drifted down from the second floor, low and calm, a voice that made my blood freeze. "So, you finally brought her." My knees nearly gave out. Oliver squeezed my hand hard. Ryland stared up the stairs, face pale. My dear friend, that voice was one I had not heard in years. A voice I never expected in that abandoned house. A voice that should not have known where we were. A voice I prayed could not be real, because it belonged to someone I thought was far, far away. Someone who should not have known anything about my life. But there they were, waiting for me in the dark. That voice drifting down from the second floor felt like a ghost reaching into my chest and squeezing my heart. For a moment, I could not breathe. Rylan froze. Oliver's hand tightened around mine, and the old house, with its cold air and broken floorboards, felt suddenly alive, like it had been holding its breath waiting for me. I whispered, "Who is that?" Neither boy answered. The silence stretched, pulling at my nerves until every beat of my heart felt like a thunderclap inside my ears. Then the voice came again, slow and steady, almost amused. "Lenora, me, come upstairs, we have much to talk about." My name, that voice knew my full name. Not many people used it, and the way it sounded in the dark made my knees weak. I felt memories stirring, old ones I had buried deep, from a time when my life was different, filled with fear I thought I had left behind. Oliver stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. "No, she is not going up there, not alone." The person upstairs let out a soft laugh. "Still so dramatic, Oliver. Still so sure you know more than you do." The floor above creaked again, slow and deliberate footsteps packing back and forth. Dust drifted from the ceiling in tiny clouds. The air smelled like old wood and something faintly bitter. Rylan moved to the base of the stairs. His face was tense but not surprised. That frightened me more than anything. He knew who was up there. He had expected this, maybe even feared it. "Rylan," I whispered, tell me who that is. Tell me why you brought me here. What is happening to my family?" He shook his head slowly. "Not yet, Aunt Lenora. We have to be careful. Every word we say right now will be heard by the wrong ears." I stepped back, bumping into the wall behind me. The plaster felt cold through my sweater. Something inside me shifted. That voice was too familiar to ignore. A face flickered in my memory. A pair of eyes. A sharp smell like cigarettes and cheap cologne. A name I promised myself never to say again. "No," I whispered. "It cannot be." Oliver looked at me, confused. "You know who it is." I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. I had not spoken this truth in decades. I never even told my daughter the full story. But now it was standing above me, breathing through the cracks in the ceiling. Before I could answer, the voice upstairs spoke again, this time more clearly, as if the person had moved closer to the stairwell. "Come now, Lenora. Do not keep me waiting. After all these years, we finally meet again." Oliver grabbed my arm. "Aunt Lenora, do not move. Whatever happens, do not go up those stairs." But my heart was thundering, my mind spinning. I whispered, "That sounds like Marshall Baylor." Oliver blinked. "Who?" Rylan froze. "You cannot be sure, not until we see him." "I am sure," I said. "I know that voice. I will never forget it." My dear friend, Marshall Baylor was a man I once knew when I was young. A man who smiled with his mouth but never his eyes. A man whose temper could turn a gentle room into a storm. A man who disappeared from my life decades ago after hurting too many people, including someone I loved dearly. Why was he here? Why did he know my nephews? Why did he know my name? Why had he followed us through the night? The red lights outside, the house, the secrecy, it all tangled together. Oliver stepped closer. "Aunt Lenora, who is he? What did he do to you?" I shook my head. This is not the time. The floor upstairs creaked again. Then everything went silent. Rylan whispered, "He is trying to listen. Everyone stay quiet." The three of us stood frozen in the dim light of the abandoned house. My breath felt loud. The ticking of my heartbeat echoed in my ears. The air seemed to grow thicker, heavier. Then a voice, colder than before, spoke from above. You think hiding here changes anything? She was chosen long before tonight. Whether you bring her willingly or whether I must take her myself, she will hear the truth. Chosen. My dear friend, that word struck me like a cold blade. Chosen for what? Rylan turned toward the back room. We need to move. Now, he might have others with him. Others? I felt the room tilt. The boys guided me toward a narrow hallway leading deeper into the house. The wallpaper peeled off in long strips. The floor creaked under every step. The smell grew stronger, as if no one had breathed in this space for years. But halfway down the hall, another sound stopped us. A soft scratching, coming from behind a closed door on our right. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The hairs on my arms rose. Oliver slowly reached for the doorknob. Do not, Rylan whispered sharply. It is not what you think. A long, slow scratch echoed again. My heart dropped. My mind raced with images I did not want to imagine. Was someone trapped? Was someone watching us through that door? Oliver turned to me. Aunt Lenora, whatever is behind this door, it has to do with you. My chest tightened. Then the voice upstairs shouted loudly enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Do not let her in there. All three of us froze. Rylan whispered, he knows we are here. He knows what room we are in. I stared at the door. My hand lifted on its own, as if something inside that room was calling me. Oliver grabbed my wrist. Aunt Lenora, please. We do not know what is inside. The scratching grew louder. Then a faint voice whispered from behind the door. Lenora, is that you? My entire body turned to ice. I knew that voice. It was someone I had not heard in more than 30 years. Someone I thought was dead. The voice behind the door whispered my name again, softer this time. Lenora, is that you? My knees weakened, my vision blurred. The hallway around me seemed to twist as if the house itself was reacting to the sound. My dear friend, imagine hearing a voice you believed was gone forever. Someone you cried for, someone you mourned, someone you loved deeply. Tell me in the comments, would you open the door or run in the opposite direction? Oliver saw the color drain from my face. He gripped my shoulders gently. Aunt Lenora, who is that? Tell us, please. But words would not come. My throat felt locked, my chest tight. I took one slow breath, then another, but nothing helped. Rylan stepped between me and the door, blocking me from reaching it. His voice was stern. We cannot open that. Not yet. If he finds out she spoke to her, it will ruin everything. Her, my mind clung to that word. Was the person behind the door really a woman? Could it truly be the voice I remembered? My hands trembled. The scratching sound came again, then the faint voice. Please, let me out. I have waited so long. I felt tears burning in my eyes. 30 years of grief stirred inside me like a storm. My dear friend, let me tell you something I have never spoken aloud. When I was a young woman, before my daughter was born, I had a sister. Her name was Marlene. She was 3 years younger than me, brave, reckless, too kind for her own good. People said we were inseparable. But then she disappeared. One night she simply vanished. The police searched. Neighbors prayed. My mother cried herself to sleep for months. Eventually, people whispered that she must have run away. But I never believed that, not even for a second. Marlene would never leave me, not without a goodbye, not without a reason. My parents passed away never knowing the truth. I grew older. I built a life. But I carried her absence like a wound that never healed. And now, in this broken house, in the dark hallway, I heard her voice. Or something that sounded horribly like it. Rylan whispered urgently, "Aunt Lenora, do not get close. We do not know what he did. We do not know how long she has been here, or what condition she is in." My head spun. I pressed a hand against the wall to steady myself. My heart begged me to open the door. My mind screamed at me to stay away. Then from upstairs, that cold voice echoed again, sharper this time. "Stay away from her, Lenora. She is not yours anymore." My blood ran cold. My stomach twisted. Not mine anymore. What did that mean? What had he done? What was happening in this terrible house? Oliver stepped closer to the door, ignoring Rylan's warning. He leaned in, listening carefully. "Aunt Lenora, tell me right now, who is behind that door?" I swallowed hard. My voice trembled. It sounded like Marlene. Oliver's eyes widened. "Your sister, the one you said died when you were young." "No," I whispered. "I never said she died. I said she disappeared." Rylan closed his eyes as if confirming something he had dreaded. Then he said quietly, "Aunt Lenora, she did not disappear." I felt the ground shift beneath me. My breathing turned shallow. He knew something. He had known before we even entered the house. "Tell me," I whispered. He nodded slowly toward the stairs. He took her. The man upstairs, Marshall Baylor. My heart shattered. The world grew quiet, empty. The only sound was my pulse roaring in my ears. Rylan looked at me with deep regret. 20 years ago, before I was even born, he kept her hidden, moved her from place to place. She never escaped. No one found her. We thought she was gone. 20 years, my mind reeled. That meant she had been alive long after we stopped searching, long after the police gave up, long after my parents passed away with broken hearts. My legs gave out. Oliver caught me before I sank to the ground. "Aunt Lenora, breathe. Please breathe." I shook my head. My voice broke. Why would he do that? Why my sister? Rylan kept his eyes on the stairs, watching for movement, because she knew something. Something he could not let her tell anyone. Something dangerous. My dear friend, I felt as though time was pulling me in two directions. Part of me wanted to run upstairs and tear Marshall Baylor apart with my own hands. The other part of me wanted to collapse and cry until my soul was empty. Then the scratching behind the door stopped. Silence fell again. A long, aching silence. And then, in the faintest voice, barely a breath, came the words that broke me. "He said you would never come for me." A sound escaped my throat, a small, broken sound that I could not hold back. Oliver held me tighter. Rylan looked away, his jaw clenched in anger. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling. I had to see her. I had to know. I had to hold her if she was alive. I had to give her the comfort she had been denied for decades. But just as my fingers brushed the metal, heavy footsteps thundered from upstairs. Not slow this time. Fast, powerful, moving toward the staircase. Oliver whispered, "He is coming down." Rylan pushed me behind him. "Aunt Lenora, stay back. Whatever happens, do not let him speak to you." But the house creaked and shook as Marshall Baylor reached the top of the stairs, his shadow stretching down the wall like a dark hand reaching toward us. Oliver hissed, "Get her out of sight, now." But there was nowhere to go. The hallway was narrow. The rooms were empty. We were trapped. My dear friend, imagine standing inches away from the door that holds someone you lost decades ago, while the monster who stole her descends the stairs to face you. Tell me in the comments, what would your heart do? Fight, freeze, flee. Then came the worst sound of all. A slow click. The doorknob behind us turned on its own. The locked door was being opened. Not by us. By her. Or by something pretending to be her. The doorknob behind us turned with a slow, trembling click. I felt the air shift. Even the dust seemed to pause in its fall. Oliver pulled me behind him so quickly I nearly stumbled. Rylan raised his hand, signaling for silence, though our breaths were already trapped in our throats. Another click. Then the door creaked open by an inch. The hallway was dim, lit only by the faint glow from Oliver's phone. The crack between the door and the frame revealed nothing but darkness, but something inside that room breathed, a long, slow exhale that sounded both human and broken. Rylan whispered, "Do not look directly inside. Not yet." But my heart refused to listen. My dear friend, imagine knowing the person you spent decades grieving might be on the other side of a thin wooden door. Would you stand still? Could you? Tell me in the comments, because even standing there with fear clawing at my ribs, I felt myself stepping forward. But then heavy footsteps from the stairs shook the house again. Marshall Baylor was moving fast, each step louder than the last, his shadow stretching down the wall like it wanted to swallow us whole. Rylan hissed to Oliver, "We cannot let her look inside. If she sees her right now, she will break." Break, that word pressed against my chest. Had I not already broken the moment I realized my sister was alive? Had I not been breaking for years without knowing why? Another slow breath came from behind the door. Then a voice, so faint it sounded like wind moving through old paper. "Lenora, he lied to you, he lied." My throat tightened. That was her voice. The same gentle, soft tone Marlene used when we were little girls sharing secrets in the dark. My hands lifted on their own, reaching toward the open sliver. But before I touched the door, Rylan grabbed my wrist. "Aunt Lenora, listen to me. We do not know what she has been through. She may not be in her right mind. She may be hurt, or confused, or angry. And when he comes down those stairs, she might react." React how I whispered. His eyes darkened, in ways you are not ready to see. Suddenly, from the stairs above us, Marshall's voice thundered through the house. "Move away from that room." Oliver shoved me backward, pressing me against the opposite wall. His voice shook. "Aunt Lenora, do not look at him. No matter what he says, do not give him your eyes." But how could I not? This was the man who had stolen my sister, stolen decades of her life, stolen peace from our family. My heart boiled with rage, fear, grief, and something I could only describe as sorrow shaped like fire. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Then his shadow reached the bottom of the stairs. Rylan stepped forward, blocking him. "Do not come any closer." Marshall paused. For a moment the house went completely silent. Then he spoke, but this time his voice was calm. Too calm. "You boys never understood what she is, what she carries. You think you can keep her from the truth, but the truth follows blood." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. What truth? What blood? What was he talking about? My dear friend, even as I stood there shaking, I kept asking myself something. Would you have demanded answers? Or would you have run? Tell me what your heart would do. The door behind us creaked wider. A pale hand slipped through the gap. It was thin, almost skeletal, but unmistakably a woman's hand. The fingers trembled. The nails were cracked. The skin carried marks that I could not understand but feared deeply. My breath hitched. "Marlene." The name slipped from my lips before I could stop it. The hand froze, then the voice came again from the darkness. "Lenora, is it really you?" My knees buckled. Oliver grabbed my waist to steady me. I could not breathe. I could not think. All I could do was listen to the voice of the sister I thought I had lost forever. But Marshall stepped closer, his tone turning sharp. "She is not ready. You cannot let her out. If you open that door, everything you built will fall apart." I snapped my head toward him. "Everything I built," I said. "You took her from me, you took everything." He smiled at me, a slow, cold smile that made my stomach twist. Oh, Lenora, you truly have no idea. Rylan positioned himself between us again. You do not speak to her. Not one more word. Marshall ignored him. He focused only on me. Your sister knew something dangerous, something about your daughter, about the money, about the people involved. That is why she was taken. And now, if you open that door, they will come for you too. My daughter, the words hit me like a slap. My daughter. What did she have to do with any of this? She had stolen from me, yes. But how could she be tied to a man like Marshall? I felt myself sinking under the weight of questions. Suddenly, the hand behind the door gripped the frame, pulling with a surprising force. The door swung wider. And for the first time, I saw part of her face. A flash of pale skin, a glimmer of familiar blue eyes, but the eyes looked frightened, wild, like someone who had lived too long in the dark. Marlene whispered, "Run, Lenora. He is lying." Marshall shouted, "Do not listen to her." Oliver pulled me behind him. Rylan yelled, "Close the door." But my sister reached out with both hands now, her fingers stretching toward me, begging, pleading. "Please, Lenora, please." Tears blurred my vision. My heart screamed to grab her, pull her out, take her home. But then, from the dark behind her, something moved. Something large. Something fast. Something not her. Her body jerked backward. Her hands slipped from the doorway. And the door slammed, shut so hard the walls shook. Then came the scream. A raw, agonizing scream from inside that room. My dear friend, I will never forget that sound. Oliver wrapped his arms around me. Rylan grabbed the doorknob, trying to force it open. But the door would not budge. Marshall stepped off the last stair and spoke with quiet certainty. "I told you, you were not ready." The scream from behind that door was unlike anything I had ever heard. It was not just pain. It was not just terror. It was the sound of a soul being ripped apart, a cry that carried years of suffering, fear, and silence. It hit me so hard that my legs nearly collapsed. If Oliver had not held me, I would have fallen to the floor. Rylan yanked the doorknob with both hands. It would not move. He slammed his shoulder against it. The door shook but stayed shut. He tried again, harder, his face twisting with anger and desperation. Still nothing. Oliver's voice cracked as he spoke. "Aunt Lenora, do not listen. Do not look at the door. Come here, stay with me." But how could I not listen? How could I not hear my sister screaming? My baby sister, the one I used to braid hair for, the one I used to sneak cookies with, the one I used to share a bed with during thunderstorms. She was behind that door, and she was in danger. I pushed past Oliver. My hand reached for the knob, trembling so hard I could barely grasp it. I have to get her out. She needs me. But Rylan spun around and grabbed my wrist. "No, stop. You do not know what is in there. You do not know what he turned her into." Turned her into? Those words struck me like ice. Marshall stood at the bottom of the stairs, watching us with a calmness that made me sick. He spoke in a low voice. "She is not the girl you remember. She is not even the woman she became. She is a product of fear, isolation, and secrets you are not ready to hear." I snapped at him, my voice breaking. "You kept her locked away. You took her life from her." He raised an eyebrow, as if amused. "Did I or did someone else tell me to take her? Someone you trust more than you trust yourself?" My heart lurched. My daughter. For one moment, that horrible thought flashed through my mind. Could my own child have been involved? Could she have known more than I ever dreamed? No, I pushed the thought away. It was impossible. It had to be. But a mother knows when an old fear is not a lie. Behind the door, the scream faded into something weaker, a gasping breath, a soft, painful moan, the sound of someone losing strength. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. Marlene. I whispered her name again, and the house seemed to tighten around it, swallowing the sound like it was dangerous. Marshall stepped closer, hands raised. Palm outward, he spoke slowly like someone speaking to a frightened animal. If you open that door, she will attack. She does not recognize you the way you think. She has been conditioned, broken, rebuilt, and made to fear the sound of your name. My voice shook with rage. You are lying. He nodded slightly. I lie often, but not about this. Rylan put himself between me and Marshall. We are leaving. You have no control here anymore. Marshall smiled. Leaving? And where do you think you will go? My people have surrounded the property. You walked straight into the trap your sister warned you about. Oliver cursed under his breath. Aunt Lenora, come on. We need to move deeper into the house. We cannot stay by this door. But I could not move. My body refused. My eyes were glued to that door. I could still hear faint breaths through it. Weak, unsteady. My sister was alive. She was hurting. She needed me. My dear friend, imagine the door that separates you from the person you lost for decades. Imagine hearing their voice but being told not to save them. Would you accept it? Or would you fight? Tell me what your heart would have done. Oliver tugged at my sleeve. Aunt Lenora, please. But before I could follow him, the footsteps inside the room shifted again. Slow, dragging, moving closer toward the door. The wood creaked under the weight of them. Oliver stiffened. Rylan quickly backed away from the frame. Then the voice from inside whispered softly, almost too softly to hear. Lenora, run. Run, run from what? Run where? My mind trembled with confusion. Then the doorknob twitched again. This time harder. The door shuddered violently. Something slammed against it from the inside. Rylan shouted, brace it. Oliver pressed his shoulder against the door. Rylan did the same. The frame rattled as something threw itself against it from the other side. Hard, fast, desperate. The moan had changed. It was no longer a human cry. It was something deeper, more broken, almost as if pain itself had found a voice. I covered my mouth with my hand. Tears streamed down my face. No, 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 what did he do to her? What did they do? Marshall watched us with a cold expression, arms folded, as if this were normal, as if this were expected, as if he had seen it 100 times. He spoke again, calm, smooth, terrifying. This is what happens when secrets are kept for too long. Oliver shouted back at him, you did this. Marshall shook his head, not alone. The house shook again with another slam against the door. It jolted the boys backward. The frame cracked. A thin line of splintered wood shot upward like lightning. My dear friend, imagine watching the last piece of family you thought you lost trying to break down a door, not out of love, but out of terror. I took another step backward. My legs trembled violently. The fear inside me grew so overwhelming that I felt dizzy. Oliver whispered, we have to go. If she gets through that door in the state she is in, we will not be able to control her. But before we could move, Rylan stared at Marshall with wide, horrified eyes. He is not scared. He wants her to get out. Marshall's smile widened. Of course I do. My breath caught. The next slam against the door cracked the top hinge loose. The entire hallway shook. The sound echoed through my bones. Oliver grabbed my hand. Aunt Lenora, we have to run. But then something happened that froze all three of us. Through the widening crack in the door, a single eye appeared. Blue. Wide. Terrified. It stared straight at me. Then the voice behind the door whispered in a trembling breath. Lenora, he told them you would replace me. Replace her. My dear friend, my heart shattered. Before I could answer, before I could speak her name, the door exploded outward with a violent crash, and something rushed through the opening. When the door burst open, the wooden frame splintered like dry bones snapping under pressure. Oliver pulled me behind him so fast that my breath caught in my throat. Ryland stumbled backward, nearly falling over a side table as the force of the impact shook the whole hallway. For one long second, dust floated in the air like drifting snow. The hallway turned silent. Dead silent. Then she stepped out. Marlene. But not the Marlene I remembered. Not the girl with sun freckles and warm, breathy laughter. Not the young woman who used to dance barefoot in our mother's kitchen. Not the sister who whispered promises to me in the dark. This woman standing in the doorway looked hollow. Her cheeks sunken. Her hair matted and gray at the roots. Her blue eyes wide and filled with a fear that did not belong to someone free, but to someone who had lived too long in the shadows of another man's control. She was breathing hard, as if every inhale carried pain. Her thin hands trembled at her sides. Her lips quivered as she stared at me, her chest rising and falling like her heart was trying to claw its way out. My dear friend, imagine seeing your loved one after decades, only to realize they were not just hidden. They were destroyed piece by piece. What would your heart have done in that moment? She whispered, Lenora. The sound of my name on her tongue nearly broke me open. I took a step forward, but Oliver grabbed my arm. Do not. She is in shock. She is not seeing you clearly. But I did not care. That was my sister, my blood, my childhood, my other half. Her body jolted when she saw me stepping closer. She looked over her shoulder into the dark room behind her, then back at me. Her voice shook like a small, frightened bird trying to escape a trap. He said you forgot me. My heart cracked. Forgot her. How could anyone forget a person they lost and prayed for every single day? I shook my head. No, Marlene, I never forgot. I mourned you. She flinched at the word mourned. Then Marshall's voice slid through the hallway like poison. Do not touch her, Lenora. Marlene's whole body froze when she heard him. Her posture stiffened like she had been struck. Her eyes widened with panic. Her fingers curled tightly, as if bracing for pain. And in that moment, I understood something terrible. He did not just keep her hidden. He trained her to obey him. Fear him. Believe him. My stomach twisted. I felt sick. I turned slowly toward him. What did you do to her? Marshall shrugged lightly. Not much, just what was necessary. Rylan lunged forward, shouting, you monster. But Marshall raised one hand lazily, and the boys froze. Not because he touched them, but because the threat in his eyes was enough to freeze the blood in anyone's veins. You think she is the victim here, he said, but she made her choices. She knew what she was risking when she uncovered what your daughter was doing. She knew that stepping into those secrets meant stepping away from the world, but she did it anyway. My body went cold. My daughter again. That name pulled like a noose around my throat. Marlene suddenly took 2 steps backward, retreating toward the dark room she had just been freed from, as if she believed she belonged inside that darkness, as if she thought she deserved it. I stepped toward her, shaking. Marlene, come here, I'm your sister. I came for you. You are safe. She shook her head violently. Her breath turned ragged. Her eyes darted between me and Marshall like a trapped animal trying to decide which hand held the cage. I whispered, it is me. You remember me, you have to. She closed her eyes and whispered, they said you replaced me in your heart. They said you did not want me found. My knees nearly buckled. Who told you that? Her lips parted, trembling. She whispered one single name. Your daughter. My heart stopped. Stopped dead. The world blurred. No, no, no. My daughter would never. She might be selfish. She might be distant. She might have stolen money from me and broken my trust. But she would never have kept my sister hidden from me, would she? Oliver whispered to Rylan, "We have to get her out of here. She is slipping." Marlene stared at me, eyes full of hurt. "She thought you forgot about me. She said you moved on with your life. She said you did not need me anymore." My dear friend, hearing that almost crushed my soul. Because the truth was, my daughter said that once when she was angry. That I clung too tightly to memories. That I lived in the past. That I needed to let go of the dead. Did she tell that to Marlene? Did she twist my grief into abandonment? Did she help hide the truth? The question burned in my chest. But before I could speak, before I could step forward and hold the sister I lost, something behind Marlene shifted. A tall shadow. A slow breath. Not hers. She whipped around, eyes widening in terror. "No, stay back." She stumbled toward me, but too late. A large hand reached from the darkness and grabbed her wrist. She screamed. Oliver and Rylan both lunged forward. I shouted her name. Marshall stepped back, as if he had predicted this moment all along. The shadow yanked her into the room. The door slammed shut. Her scream echoed through the house. And the voice inside the darkness growled one word. Mine. My dear friend, my soul shattered in that moment. When that deep voice growled the word mine, something inside me cracked. Something old. Something I had held together for years with nothing but prayer, stubbornness, and hope. It shattered like glass. Marlene's scream echoed from behind the door, raw and terrified. I rushed forward without thinking. Without breathing. Without caring whether I lived or died. Oliver yelled, "Aunt Lenora, stop." But I could not stop. That was my sister, my blood, my history, and she was being dragged back into the darkness she had just escaped. I slammed against the door with my shoulder. Pain shot through my arm, but I did not care. Rylan grabbed my waist and pulled me back before I could slam again. "Let me go," I screamed. "Let me go." He held tighter. "Aunt Lenora, if you go in there alone, you will not come out." His voice shook, and that terrified me more than anything. Rylan was always the calm one, the steady one, but this time even he was trembling. The door rattled again from the inside. Something heavy slammed into it. The hinges groaned. A crack spread along the frame like a spider web. Marlene's voice cried out, "Lenora, please, please." My heart ripped open. I clawed at the door, fingers scraping the wood. Open it now." Marshall stood a few feet away, watching the chaos unfold with a calmness that made me want to tear him apart. He almost looked pleased, like he was witnessing a performance he had waited years to see. Rylan rounded on him. "What is in that room? What did you do to her?" Marshall tilted his head, his voice smooth. "You still do not understand. She was never alone in that room. She was guarded." Guarded? By who? By what? My stomach twisted at the thought. Oliver's voice cracked. "You mean like a guard dog?" Marshall laughed lightly. "A dog would have been kind." My dear friend, fear has a smell. I tasted it in the back of my throat. Bitter, sharp, heavy. Another slam shook the door. This time louder. Stronger. The entire frame shifted. Rylan pushed me behind him. "Get her out of the hallway. Now." Oliver grabbed my hand, trying to pull me back toward the stairs, but I froze. I could not move. I could not abandon Marlene again. Not for a second. Not for breath. Not for safety. Then the doorknob began to turn. Slowly, painfully, like the hand holding it had bones that did not bend the right way. Marshall took one step backward. He was not afraid, he was waiting, watching. Rylan motioned silently to Oliver, on my count. But before they could do anything, the door swung open just an inch. From the darkness, a hand slid through the gap. Long fingers. Too thin. Too pale. Too strong. It gripped the frame, knuckles sharp like little stones under the skin. And then I saw the arm attached to it. Grayish skin. Covered in marks. Not bruises. Not cuts. Something else. Something like scars carved by someone who did not care whether the person survived. Oliver's face drained of color. Rylan shifted his weight, ready to fight. I stood frozen, tears dripping silently down my cheeks. Then a voice floated out of the darkness. Not human. Not soft. A low, raspy tone that seemed to scrape across the walls. She stays. My heart stilled. My breath stopped. Rylan snarled, "She is not property." The voice answered, "She is the one who opened the door. She belongs here." Marlene cried out from somewhere deeper inside the room, her voice shaking like she knew what that voice meant. "No, not again, please." Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward. "Not this time, not ever again. You want someone, take me instead." The hallway went silent. Rylan spun toward me, horrified. "No, absolutely not." Oliver grabbed my wrist. "Aunt Lenora, do not say that, do not even think it." But Marshall smiled. Of course she would offer herself. That is who she is. That is what makes her dangerous. Dangerous. Me. The thought made no sense. I locked my eyes on the crack in the door. "Who are you? Why her? Why my sister?" The voice answered with a growl that made the hair on my arms rise. "She knows the truth. She saw what your daughter did. She saw who she met. She tried to warn you, and she died for it." Died? The word echoed through my chest. I shook my head. "No, no, she did not die. She is right there. You stole her." The voice let out a sound, almost like laughter. "She died the moment she learned the truth about you." My breath froze. The truth about me. What truth? Marlene screamed again, this time a sound of pure terror. Oliver lunged toward the door. Rylan reached for him. Marshall stepped slowly backward, as if giving the creature space. And then the door swung completely open. My dear friend. I saw something inside that room that I will never forget. This was no accident. No misunderstanding. No coincidence. Everything that happened to Marlene began with someone in my own bloodline. And in the middle of that darkness stood the creature that kept her trapped. And it turned its eyes straight at me. What I saw inside that room did not belong in the world we know, not because it was a monster, not because it looked inhuman, but because it looked too human, too broken, too twisted by the hands that shaped it. When the door swung open, the darkness thinned just enough for me to see it. A man. Not a creature. Not an animal. A man whose body had been starved, scarred, drugged, and molded until the human parts of him had almost disappeared. His ribs stuck out in sharp lines. His eyes were sunken, but burning with a feverish brightness. His jaw trembled like he was holding back years of pain. His wrists bore marks of restraints. His shoulders curved inward, like someone who had lived a lifetime being punished for simply standing tall. But what chilled me most was the chain around his ankle, bolted into the floor behind him. He wasn't a monster. He was a prisoner. A weapon. A warning. A consequence. And behind him, trembling like a leaf caught between two storms, was Marlene. She crouched in the corner, shaking, pale, desperate to reach me, but terrified to move. The man's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths as he stared at me with eyes that had forgotten kindness. Rylan whispered, "God." Oliver's hand trembled against my arm. Marshall leaned against the wall, calm as ever. "Yes, now you see it. He is what happens when the wrong people learn the truth." I took a step forward because what else could I do? My sister was inside, and no amount of fear could have kept me away. The chained man growled softly, like someone warning me not to come closer. I stopped. My voice cracked. "Who are you?" He blinked slowly, and for a moment, I saw the memory of a name in his eyes. But he did not say it. Maybe he was not allowed to. Maybe it hurt too much. Marlene whispered from behind him, "He was not always like this. They did this to him so he could guard me. He was supposed to keep secrets from leaving this room." My stomach flipped. "What secrets?" She looked at me and then at Marshall. "The ones I tried to tell you, the ones your daughter took from me." My dear friend, hearing that was like having my heart torn out of my chest. I shook my head. My daughter is selfish. Yes, she has hurt me. Yes, but she would never chain my sister. She would never work with a man like him. Marlene pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She did not chain me. She did something worse. The chain man flinched, as if her words triggered memories in him. "She lied to you." I froze. "About what?" Marlene took a breath that looked painful. "She told me you wanted money more than family. She told me you blamed me for disappearing. She told me you refused to look for me. She told me you said I ruined your life." My knees weakened. Tears fell down my cheeks. No, I never said that. Why would she tell you that?" Marlene's voice cracked. "Because if I believed you did not want me, I would not try to reach you. And if I did not try to reach you, no one would question what she was involved in." I shook my head violently. What was she involved in? What did she do? Marshall stepped forward, folding his hands behind his back like a teacher giving a lesson. "She got mixed up with people who make me look like a saint. And when your sister uncovered their plan, your daughter blamed her for everything. She brought Marlene to me, told me to keep her quiet, told me to make sure she never spoke a word, and she paid me very well to do it." I felt the floor drop from beneath me. My daughter. My own child. Oliver whispered, "That cannot be true. She would never go that far." But Marlene nodded slowly. "I am sorry, but it is true." The chained man turned to her, making a soft sound like a wounded animal. "He protected me," she said quietly. "They told him I carried danger, that I carried truth, but he is not the monster. He was never the monster." Then she looked at me with wide eyes. "He knows everything. Everything she took. Everything she hid. Everything she planned to pin on you." My breath caught. And then I realized something. That man was not guarding Marlene. He was guarding the truth. The truth my daughter feared. But Marshall smiled and ruined the silence. "Your daughter is gone. She left the state the moment she knew you were coming here. She knew this day was coming. She knew the truth would reach you eventually." Rylan stepped forward. "If she set all this up, then why leave the guard here?" Marshall shrugged. "Because she assumed you would never come. She thought you had already let go of your sister. She underestimated you. And now the price has to be paid." Oliver whispered, "What price?" Marshall lifted a finger. "This one." He pointed to the chained man. Suddenly, the man lunged forward, yanking the chain so hard the bolt in the floor squealed. Rylan grabbed me. Oliver jumped back. But the man did not attack. He fell to his knees. His hands gripped the floor. And he whispered 3 words that broke my heart. I want free. Not freedom. Free. Like a child. Like someone begging. I stepped toward him, slowly, softly, gently. Marshall shouted, "Stop, he is dangerous." But for the first time since this nightmare began, I understood something clearly. Marlene was not the only prisoner. I knelt on the floor in front of him. My voice shook. "Who did this to you?" His eyes filled with pain. "She." My breath froze. My daughter again. He trembled. "They made me hurt people. They made me keep secrets. They made me guard her. They told me it was for money, for control, for safety. But I never wanted it." Marlene touched his shoulder. He protected me more than he hurt me. He saved me more than once. I whispered, "What is your name?" He stared at me for a long time, then whispered something so soft, so broken, it sounded like dust falling. "Malcolm." My dear friend, that name struck me with a force I cannot describe, because Malcolm was not a stranger. He was someone who had gone missing decades ago. A boy from our town. An older boy who used to walk us home from school. Who defended Marlene from bullies. Who once told me sisterhood was the strongest bond he ever saw. And he had been taken too. I reached out, and slowly, carefully, I placed my hand over his. He flinched at first, then lowered his head. I whispered, "Malcolm, you are not theirs anymore." His breath shook, his lip quivered. Then the chain, bolted to his ankle, trembled. The metal groaned. And for the first time since we entered that house, the fear inside him transformed into something else. "Hope." He whispered, "Help me." I stood up, turned to Rylan, turned to Oliver, turned to Marlene. "We are leaving, all of us." Marshall laughed softly. No, you are not." But Rylan stepped toward him with fire in his eyes. "Yes, we are." And for the first time, Marshall's face changed. Not to anger, not to fear, to shock. Because Malcolm stood up. As if the hope in his chest gave him strength the chains tried to crush. He pulled the chain, so hard the bolt in the floor ripped free. The floor cracked. Dust rose. Marshall stumbled backward. Malcolm stepped between us and him. Not as a monster. Not as a guard. But as a man, finally rising after years in the dark. Marshall reached for the gun on the shelf, but Malcolm slammed him against the wall with a strength born from pure will. Marlene grabbed my hand. Rylan grabbed Oliver. We all ran out of that room as Malcolm held Marshall pinned. And as we reached the top of the stairs, I looked back. Malcolm turned his head toward me. His eyes soft. "Human." "Go," he whispered. "Take her home, take yourselves home." Then he looked at Marshall and said a final sentence that still rings in my mind. "No more secrets." We fled the house. We left the darkness behind. We brought Marlene to safety. We told the truth. The police came. The case exploded open. Names poured out. Deals fell apart. People were arrested. And the web my daughter built collapsed. As for my daughter, she fled the country. They are still searching for her. And I am learning to accept the truth that loving your child does not mean protecting the monster inside them. Marlene lives with me now. We take slow walks every morning. We talk about the years we lost. And sometimes she cries in my arms, not because she is afraid, but because she is finally free. And Malcolm, the last I heard, he is getting treatment. Real treatment. Not chains. Not punishment. Help. He asks for Marlene sometimes. And I believe someday, when he is strong enough, they will see each other again. My dear friend, before I end this story, I want to ask you something from the heart. If it was you, would you forgive a child who betrayed you this deeply? Would you close the door? If it was you, would you forgive a child who betrayed you this deeply? Would you close the door forever? Or would you wait for them to come home? Tell me in the comments. I truly want to hear from you. Thank you for walking through this storm with me. Thank you for holding my hand through the dark. If you want to join me for more emotional stories like this, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps this little family grow, and it tells me you want more. My dear friend, until the next story, stay safe, stay kind, and hold the people you love a little closer tonight.